Have you ever stood in a crowded, weary, and cold train station, and suddenly been stopped by a melody so sad that your heart had to skip a few beats? An old piano, a homeless girl, and a man who had lost all faith in music. They meet in silence, but the music speaks and changes both of their lives. If you believe that a song can soothe a broken soul, hit the subscribe button for Gentle Heart Stories, where we share tales that make your heart soften and remind you to believe in kindness again. Now, join me on an emotional journey through The Piano in the Train Station, beneath New York City, where light is blocked by concrete walls and the constant hum of passing trains. There is a girl named Lily. She has no home, no family, no one to wait for or to be waited for. Lily lives among the cold benches, the fleeting glances, and the broken sleep interrupted by the loudspeakers announcing the arrival of the trains. But every day, at the same time, she sits in front of the old public piano in the corner of the station. It's peeling, some keys are chipped, and sometimes it's even out of tune because of the dust of time. But to Lily, it is the most valuable thing left in her life. Music is the only thing that makes her feel like she's still human, not a shadow wandering among the bustling city. Even though no one really stops to listen, even though only hurried footsteps and cold glares surround her, she plays. Each note is a whisper to herself, a reminder that she's still alive, still has something to give. Some mornings, when the cold wind rushes through the train station's gaps, her hands are so numb that she can't press the chords. But she still sits there, exhaling white vapor, wiping the dew off the keys, and begins to play, even when no one asks her to. People often look at her with confused eyes, as if they can't understand why a homeless girl would play the piano. But Lily doesn't need anyone to understand. She just needs to play. In a world where she has nothing left to lose, the piano is the only place she can still keep a part of her humanity. No one knows that the frail homeless girl sitting by the old piano was once a little girl with dreams of standing on a concert stage. Lily used to study music at a small public school in Queens. Her mother was the first to notice her exceptional musical ear. In their small apartment, her mother would often play classical music on the radio, then teach Lily how to count beats, how to breathe gently while moving her hands over an imaginary piano on the old dining table. They couldn't afford a real piano, so her mother would use a shoebox lid as a makeshift keyboard. And that's where Lily's first notes were born, but life has a way of taking everything away without warning. When Lily was 13, her mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Before she could begin treatment or say all the things she wanted, she passed away on a cold October night. Her mother's death was like a sharp wind that pierced Lily's heart, making all the music seem distant and choked. Her father, once a gentle, quiet man, couldn't bear the shock and began turning to alcohol to numb the pain. But alcohol didn't just burn away the sorrow, it also destroyed Lily's family. From a loved and protected little girl, Lily became a survivor in the storm of her broken family. Music lessons were interrupted, sleepless nights filled with yelling and smashing. She tried to hold on to school, to hold on to music as a person struggling to stay afloat in an ocean. But eventually, her grades dropped, teachers complained, and the school had no reason to keep an unstable student. Lily was expelled at 16. Without a diploma, with no one to turn to, she began wandering the streets. Only music remained. Even though she no longer had her school's piano, no more lessons, Lily still remembered every chord, every note. Whenever she found a public piano somewhere, a park, a train station, a shopping mall, she would play as if it were her last time. Not for money, not for the audience. Just simply because without playing the piano, she would no longer be herself. Music was her last refuge from the darkness. It was the thin blanket she wove herself to cover the cracks in her heart. Lily's life beneath the city streets of New York was not marked by days, but by repeated moments between noise and darkness. Every morning, when the rushing people poured down the steps of the subway station, the girl was already there, huddled on a cold wooden bench, wearing an old coat, her eyes fixed on the piano as if it were the only friend she had left in the world. People passed her by like rushing water, hurried, no one stopped. They brushed past her as though she were a part of the wall, or some undefined object. Some would glance at her with a brief look of pity, but quickly turn away as if afraid that emotions would pull them away from their busy routine. A few would drop a few coins into her small cardboard box, a hasty, nameless act of charity, no thanks necessary. Sometimes, Lily felt like a melody that was missed in a world that was speeding by. She didn't expect anyone to remember her name. In fact, it had been a long time since anyone had called her Lily with the gentle tone her mother once used. Here, in this place, names have no value. People only recognize her by her image, the piano girl at Subway Station 7, or worse, just a homeless person playing music. Yet, she still plays. Every day, she wipes the dust off the piano keys with the sleeve of her coat, adjusts her sitting posture, and places her thin fingers on the keys as if it were a ritual to start a new day. One day, the rain drizzled through the whole morning, water dripping from the old ceiling, forming a puddle around Lily's feet. The raindrops hitting the piano made a bitter ting-ting sound. She still played. No one stopped. No one said a word. But she wasn't angry. She had gotten used to being invisible to the world. Occasionally, a child would tug at their mother's hand, point at her, and ask, "Why is she sitting there playing music?" The mother would hurriedly pull the child along and whisper in their ear, "Don't look, we're late for the train." For Lily, those brief moments, the innocent gaze of a child or the clink of a few coins, became the emotional fragments she gathered to fight through each day. Deep underground, where time seems to freeze between the screeching of trains and the pounding of hurried shoes, Lily lived between two worlds, the world of people and the world of music. One rejected her, passed by her, left her behind. The other quietly embraced her every time she played the first song of the day. That day, New York was colder than usual. Lily's breath rose into a thin vapor in the dense air of the subway station. She huddled in her thin coat, her fingers turning red from the cold, but still reached out to touch the gray, time-worn keys. The piano was cold, cold like the ground, like the gaze of strangers, like her life over the years. She didn't plan to play anything. She just meant to sit there quietly, like a shadow that exists. But then, a feeling rose from deep within, the desire to hear herself again. Not through the noise of the world, but through the melody she once wrote, a song that no one had ever heard, never performed anywhere except in her mind. Lily bowed her head, exhaled a long breath, and began to play. Her fingers glided lightly, as gentle as the wind, as soft as drifting clouds, and as sad as a memory of an afternoon. It wasn't a song with a complete structure. It was a whisper, written in broken notes, telling the story of a little girl who once had a dream, once learned piano with her mother in a sunlit apartment, once had her hair tied high and eyes shining every time she touched the music. Then her mother passed away. Her father turned into a stranger. The warmth of home vanished. And she, once the little girl standing on stage, now sat here, in the heart of the cold earth, playing only for her own loneliness. That music, it was Lily no longer hiding. Not to impress, not to make money, but only to free her soul in a moment when the past flooded back. It was a reminder that, I was someone. I am still alive. The music wasn't loud. It crept through the noisy rumblings of the train, pierced through the hurried footsteps of the crowd, and reached those who least expected it. The people nearby began to stop. A little girl pulled her mother's hand. A man set his suitcase down and looked up at the piano. A student, listening to music through earphones, pulled them out and fell silent. Something in that melody made time seem to slow down, as if those strangers were stepping into another space, where the music told a story everyone had once felt in their lives. For Lily, it was the first time she allowed her heart to speak in the language she loved most. No words, no names, only feelings. She didn't expect praise. She didn't expect to be remembered. But when her fingers touched the final note, and the sound quietly faded away, she suddenly realized, for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel cold. She looked up. And then she saw him. A man stood still in the crowd. He didn't move. He didn't blink. And 2 lines of tears were streaming down his face. Lily froze. She didn't know who he was. But in that moment, she knew one thing for sure: the music had touched someone. And for her, that was enough. He appeared as if he had stepped out from the very melody Lily had just created, quietly, calmly, but carrying something heavier than the baggage the world usually drags along in the train station. No one noticed him among the hurried people. No one realized that beneath his light gray coat, there was a heart as torn as the sound Lily had just played. He wasn't young, probably over 60, with neatly combed graying hair, but his face was etched with deep folds of time, tiredness, and regret. He held nothing in his hands, no phone, no suitcase, no work documents, just those eyes, wide open, staring at Lily as if he were trying to find something in the face of this stranger. As Lily played the final note, the sound ringing long like the last breath of a soul about to let go, he gently tilted his head, closed his eyes for a few seconds, as if in a moment of remembrance for something sacred. And when he opened his eyes, they were wet. He didn't wipe them. He didn't hide them. The tears flowed naturally, like a stream overflowing after years of being dammed by the rocks of reason, responsibility, and fame. Lily saw him. She wasn't used to reacting to other people's gazes. Usually, it was pity or avoidance. But his gaze was different. It was real. It was deep. It carried a pain she had also felt. And in a brief but forever lasting moment, their gazes met. No words were spoken. No identities were given. But something passed from one heart to another. Lily gave a slight smile, very faint, like a thank you. She didn't need to know who he was. She only knew that she was no longer alone in that piece of music. He stood there, motionless. People continued to pass by. A few dropped coins. Some took videos. There was an announcement over the loudspeaker about the next train. But he remained still. His eyes still focused on the girl before the old piano, as if afraid that if he blinked, everything would vanish like a dream. And Lily, in that moment, was no longer a homeless girl. She was an artist. She was a storyteller. She was the composer of an unnamed symphony, awakening the deepest parts of humanity. No one knew that the man standing still was Elliot Grant, one of the wealthiest music and technology investors in New York. No one knew he had once been a piano prodigy, someone who left the stage after a great shock and never touched a piano for 30 years. But today, He had heard what he thought he would never hear again, real music, and in silence, he stood there, as if his heart was beginning to melt after 3 decades of freezing. When Lily's final piece stopped, the surrounding space seemed to be still. The noisy sounds of the subway, the hurried footsteps, everything seemed to fade in that moment. All that remained was the heavy silence, as if the air itself was listening to something deeper, something more mysterious. And in that silence, he, the man still standing in the bustling crowd, suddenly collapsed like a mountain falling. His eyes could no longer hold back, tears fell silently. He couldn't stop crying, couldn't stop sobbing, though he tried to keep calm. It seemed as if he was in more pain than ever before, a pain that could not be explained, that could not be rationalized with theories or words. Only tears, falling down his rugged face, like a grinding mill finally letting go after so many years. And the sorrow inside him seemed to come not just from the music Lily had played, but from years past, from a past he couldn't escape, a loss that music couldn't soothe. He gasped, then quickly turned away. Not a word was spoken. Not a glance back. Only the hurried footsteps, disappearing into the crowd, and an old, lost figure, like his own soul. Those tears had seeped deeply into his heart, but he couldn't share them with anyone. He left like a gentle breeze, leaving no trace except for the sad memories. Lily remained there, her hands still on the piano keys, her eyes wide as she watched him. She didn't understand what had just happened. She didn't understand why that man was crying. She didn't understand why there was such a silence, a suffocating stillness, as if time had stopped in that moment. But inside her, something had ignited. A strange feeling rose within her, the feeling that she had done something important, something beyond the coins she earned every day. His tears made her feel she was no longer alone. They were like a sign, a reminder that despite how hard life could be, despite the absence of music in his life, somewhere, there was someone offering their heart through every note. And Lily, though poor, though lonely, was the one who had done that. Lily sighed softly, but didn't feel sad. On the contrary, she felt a faint hope pass through her heart. Something was beginning to change, though she couldn't tell what it was. Lily looked around, seeing the hurried people still rushing by, no one stopping. But in her heart, everything seemed to have changed. She wondered if he would return. Would he ever know that the very piece of music, though simple and sorrowful, could move someone like him, someone who had lost faith in everything? Then she shook her head, smiled faintly, vaguely. She couldn't wait for answers. She couldn't expect change from anyone but herself. But there was one thing she knew for sure, she would never forget that gaze, those tear-filled eyes, and a heart yearning to find itself again. And with a tired smile, Lily stood up, walked away from her seat, and began collecting the coins left by the passers-by. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but today, at least, she had touched a part of a dream she had once forgotten. If you're feeling touched by this story, don't forget to click subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next inspiring stories. At Gentle Heart Stories, we share tales of kindness, change, and valuable life lessons. Be a part of this loving community and help us spread positive messages. William was not the type to reveal himself easily, not because he couldn't, but because he didn't want to. His life was wrapped in a perfect shell, from expensive suits to his magnificent mansion in the suburbs of New York. Lavish parties, meetings with partners and friends, everything seemed like closed doors, with him as the only one allowed in or out. William was a famous billionaire in the investment world, one of the most influential men in finance, but none of his success could mask the profound loneliness in his heart. Few knew that, before becoming the powerful man he was once a talented pianist. Music had been William's greatest passion. On quiet summer afternoons, he would sit by the grand piano, his hands gliding gently over the keys, allowing the music to soothe his soul. Music was his lifeline, the place where he found comfort and peace during his dreamy youth. But then, family tragedy made him abandon everything. Years ago, his wife, the woman he loved most, died in a car accident. Her sudden death was a huge shock for William. Despite trying to hold on to the tangible aspects of life, the numbers, the financial success, his heart was still torn by the pain of loss. Every time he sat at the piano, he couldn't forget the image of his wife, who used to sit beside him, listening to the music he played. Music no longer provided comfort but instead intensified the emptiness inside. Since that day, William never touched the piano again. He had locked his heart away, letting music and all those beautiful memories sink deep into the past. For him, the world of music had died at that moment. So, he threw himself into work, becoming one of the wealthiest investors, pouring all his energy into building his financial empire to forget the wounds of the past. Even with all his money and power, William could not find peace in his life. Day after day, he lived in a world of numbers, financial reports, and tense meetings. He had no real friends, just employees, assistants, and lawyers, who were always ready to help when he asked. But the truth was, no one truly heard him. His words, his emotions, were buried in trivial conversations about work and money. William felt like a shadow, lost between the cold walls of his mansion. In this lavish world, no one truly cared about what he thought, felt, or the wounds that couldn't heal in his heart. Despite being surrounded by hundreds of people, he felt more alone than ever. William's life, though seemingly glamorous on the outside, was truly empty and cold. He could not escape the feeling of loss and loneliness, a constant sadness that neither wealth nor power could soothe. And then, one day, everything began to change. William's mansion was nestled in a quiet area, far from the noise of the city. Although the house was magnificent, with walls decorated with expensive artworks, large meticulously cared-for gardens, and grand living rooms, the space always felt cold and desolate. William never opened the doors to guests, only those who worked for him came and went. Mornings and afternoons, he still woke up, drank coffee, read the newspaper, and discussed work over the phone. And so, day after day, the cycles of work caused him to lose track of time. Although he was always surrounded by assistants, lawyers, and asset managers, none of them truly understood him. They were just shadows passing through William's life, doing his bidding, providing the services he requested, but never asking about his feelings or mental state. They came, worked, and left, leaving him with long lonely evenings, sitting in the grand living room, unnoticed by anyone. One of his assistants, a woman named Sarah, was the only one who noticed the change in William's behavior. She knew he wasn't just living for work or money, there was a deep emptiness in his heart. She had wanted to talk to him about the pain of his past many times, but William always avoided it, turning back to work and contracts. Though financially successful, he always felt lacking in life, missing genuine relationships, missing someone who could truly listen and share. In that mansion, he was a rich man, but also the poorest in spirit. Every morning, when William woke up, he still felt like the only person in the world, with no one to share his joys or sorrows with. Even when he went out to lavish parties or events, he still felt like he was standing in the middle of a crowd without being able to connect with anyone. Conversations with partners always revolved around work, finance, and business deals. It had been so long since William knew the feeling of speaking to someone about his deepest emotions. He had no close friends, no one to lean on during times of exhaustion. All he had were work relationships, people who never really cared about him as a person, but only about the material benefits he brought. Thus, William's loneliness was not a coincidence. It was the result of abandonment, of irreplaceable losses. Every night, when he looked out the window of his mansion and saw the faint lights from afar, William felt as though he were lost in this city. The city was bustling, full of people, yet it seemed that no one truly saw him. Even when he stepped outside and strolled along the streets, he still felt like an invisible person, someone with no clear purpose in life. The feeling of being unnoticed, of being uncared for, was what made him feel lonelier than ever. One of the things William could never explain was why, despite the many people around him, he still felt like the loneliest person in the world. Though wealth and power could earn him respect from those around him, they could not bring him a true connection. Over the years, he had forgotten how to love, how to allow himself to be loved, and most importantly, he had forgotten himself. Then, one day, a piece of music awakened forgotten memories, leading him back to the beautiful days of the past when music was his refuge and his lifeblood. That night, like any other night, William lay in the large bed in the spacious bedroom of his mansion. The city lights filtered through the curtains, casting a soft light onto the plush carpet. Everything seemed perfect to an outsider, but for William, tonight was different. Despite it being late, he could not sleep. The piece of music that Lily played at the subway station continued to echo in his mind, like a wave soothing a soul long neglected. That music was not a loud melody, but something gentle and profound, almost making the listener feel an unspeakable sorrow. The sound was like a breeze sweeping through a still space, stirring up distant memories within him. William had once been a pianist, a man who had devoted his youth and passion to music. Music was where he found himself, a way to express deep emotions without speaking. However, after the family tragedy, he had abandoned music, abandoning a part of himself. The feeling for music he once loved gradually became distant. Like a faded memory buried deep, yet, a simple piece of music by Lily had the power to awaken those memories. Tonight, he could not sleep. Images of the past, of the glorious days of his youth, of the evenings he sat playing the piano at home, with the dim light from the table lamp, and his mother's loving smile, all of those came rushing back into his mind. Those memories, which he thought he had forgotten, now resurfaced strongly. Lily's music acted as a catalyst, preventing him from returning to sleep. He turned in his bed, trying to suppress the chaotic emotions within him, but only felt more exhausted and directionless. Every time he tried to close his eyes, the image of Lily appeared. The little girl with her hands focused on the piano keys, her eyes closed, as if she were lost in a world of her own. The scene was like a living painting, full of emotion, and he could not tear himself away from it. Her music was a wake-up call for William, a revival from a past he thought he had buried forever. It was the simplicity and sincerity in the way Lily played the piano that forced him to confront himself, to face the things he had long forgotten, unable to endure this feeling any longer. William decided to get up from his bed. He walked to his desk, where there was an old family photo, and sat down. His hand lightly touched the old photos, while his mind was still filled with Lily's music. The images, the emotions within him, seemed to wrap around each other, like a vortex he could not escape. There was only one thought left in his mind: that girl, why does her music affect me so strongly? The rain outside grew heavier, and the sound of it hitting the window was like the sound of a violin, blending with the music in his mind. William suddenly felt an emptiness in his heart. He had never thought that a homeless girl, someone who only played the piano to survive, could make a billionaire like him feel small and lacking. An indescribable feeling, a desperate longing to understand her, to meet her, to share something with her. But he knew that the girl would not let him approach easily. She was not someone who could be easily persuaded, not someone who would accept simple invitations. In his troubled mind, William found himself drawn to something greater, something he had never really thought about before. Perhaps Lily's music was not just comfort for lonely souls, but also a reminder of the important things he had missed in his life. And so, with a decision he could not explain clearly, he stood up, walked to his desk, and called his assistant. His order was simple: find out about Lily. The next morning, as the sunlight filtered through the heavy curtains in William's office, he decided that he could wait no longer. The name Lily still echoed in his head, like a call he could not ignore. After calling his assistant, he immediately ordered an investigation into the girl he had met at the subway station. Everything he did had a clear purpose, and this time, his purpose was to learn about Lily. The girl whose music had touched the deepest part of his soul. Give me a full report on Lily. Any information related to her, even the smallest detail, I want to know, he commanded. His assistant, who had worked with him for many years, nodded and quickly left to carry out his request. William didn't pay attention to his assistant's reaction, but was lost in his own thoughts. The more he thought about Lily, the more he felt he was losing control. That girl, with her small hands playing the piano, had the ability to make him, a man who had always stood at the top of his career, feel weak and confused. Time passed, but the news he received about Lily was not what he had hoped for. A few hours later, his assistant returned, looking not very pleased. Sir, we found nothing about Lily. She has no record in any government agencies, no information related to family, friends, or any past work. She seems to be invisible in this city. Even the people around the subway station don't know much about her. She is simply a person playing the piano in a corner of the subway, the assistant reported, sounding somewhat disappointed. William was not surprised, but inside, he felt a bit disappointed. Of course, a homeless girl like Lily would not have an impressive record or clear information in official data systems. But the lack of any trace made him feel that she was even more mysterious and elusive. In this world, where everything could be found online, it was rare for someone to live like a ghost. That only made William feel like he was facing a puzzle that he couldn't solve. He stood up from the table and looked out the window. The city of New York, under the daylight, appeared as busy and lively as usual. But within him, nothing stirred. Lily, that girl, was just another piece of a puzzle he couldn't solve. A person with no background, no clear past, yet carrying an undeniable strength. What had she done to be able to play the piano so emotionally, when her life seemed so dark? William sat back down and motioned for his assistant to leave, giving him space to think. The confusion overwhelmed him. But then, a thought crossed his mind. If I can't find her through official channels, I'll have to find another way to meet her. He smiled to himself, feeling as if he had made a decision. Although he wasn't sure how she would react, he felt that learning about this girl had become a need he couldn't ignore. The next day, William returned to the subway station once again, though his mind was filled with anxiety about what was to come. Every step seemed too familiar with the walls of his mansion, but the steps and the old wooden chairs at the subway station were a whole new world. He couldn't resist the urge to return, for it was there that Lily's music had changed him, when he entered the station, nothing had changed. The crowd still hurried by, but something about it stopped in his mind. He approached the piano where Lily often played. This time, he sat down on a wooden chair and quietly observed the girl from afar. She was playing a different piece, gentle yet still profound. Each note seemed like an expression of her soul, a way she had found to connect with the world outside, even though that world often seemed indifferent to her existence. William sat there in silence, not wanting to disturb her, simply wanting to listen to the music she created, as a form of connection he had never experienced before. And then, when the music ended, he stood up, this time not rushing as he had before. He took a large bill from his pocket, smiled gently, and offered it toward Lily. She looked up, not surprised or delighted, just gently shaking her head. "I don't play to sell," she said calmly, as if she had heard this question hundreds of times. William stood still for a long moment, looking at her, and then smiled for the first time in years. It wasn't a perfect smile, but it was natural and sincere. A smile that made him realize that not everything could be solved with money, and that there were things that couldn't be bought. And those moments, sitting by the old piano, made him realize that his life had been missing something important that he now needed to find: emotions. Although that morning, the indescribable feeling lingered in William's heart, he knew he needed to return. The urgency deep within him was undeniable. That emotion, the stirring he had never felt in years, was like a small flame growing stronger in his heart. Lily, the homeless girl playing piano at the subway station, had made him confront emotions he had tried to bury for a long time. He didn't understand why, but the need to return, to meet her again, was a strong feeling he couldn't ignore. When he entered the station that afternoon, the atmosphere seemed a little different. The crowd still bustled, but there was something strangely calm and peaceful in this place. The noise from the city outside seemed unable to touch the space in the subway station, where Lily was sitting by the old piano. Her fingers gently glided across the keys, a familiar action, but full of life, as if she carried within her a part of the soul of this world. William stopped, silently observing from afar. She didn't see him, and he didn't intend to startle her. The keys rang again, and this time, the music Lily played was different from the ones before. It was no longer just a sad melody, but a piece full of hope, like a faint light shining through the darkness. Every note seemed to carry a story, an emotion that had never been clearly expressed. William sat there, quietly, letting the music surround him, and for the first time in many years, he felt a sense of relief. When the music ended, the atmosphere in the subway station seemed to settle. With only the light breathing of passers-by and the distant noise of trains. William stood up, walked closer to the girl, and after a moment of hesitation, he pulled out a large bill from his pocket, carefully offering it to Lily. She looked up, meeting his gaze with no surprise, only calmness, and slowly shook her head. "I don't play to sell," she said, her voice soft but firm. William stood there, silent. Her refusal didn't make him feel confused or disappointed. On the contrary, it made him understand something deeper. Throughout his life, he had been used to being able to buy whatever he wanted. But Lily, this girl, had taught him that there were things that couldn't be bought. And sometimes, those things that couldn't be bought with money were the most important things in life. A gentle smile spread across his face, a smile he hadn't had in years, slowly appearing. It wasn't a smile of satisfaction or joy, but one born from realizing a profound truth he had never known. William stood there, a man who had long lost his emotions, but now, just by meeting a homeless girl, he had rediscovered the ability to feel. Lily's refusal wasn't just words, it was a clear message to him: music, like life, wasn't always measured by material worth. And for her, it seemed that playing the piano wasn't a way to make a living, but a way to live true to herself. He stood there for a while, not only feeling strange about himself but also sensing a peace within his soul. It had been a long time since he had felt true calm and contentment within himself. His entire life had been a series of races for fame and wealth, but today, he felt that he had found something truly more valuable. A simple feeling, yet it made him feel complete. And then, as he was about to turn away, Lily looked at him once more. The girl smiled gently, saying nothing, but her smile was like a greeting, an invisible thank you, and a way she was opening herself to him. William didn't need any more words. He turned away, but in his heart, the melodies from that old piano still echoed. A piece of music he would never forget, never fade away. The next day, William could not wait any longer. His life had changed incredibly since the first time he heard Lily play. Every morning, he woke up early, no longer a billionaire rushing through meetings or investment deals, but a man seeking a peace he had never had. That day, he wasn't in a hurry, wasn't worried about work or the pressures of life. Everything around him seemed temporary and meaningless as he thought about the girl sitting quietly by the old piano in the subway station. When he entered the station, the atmosphere was like yesterday, still noisy, still bustling with people passing by, but there was something new, a kind of magic he couldn't explain. The scene was still unchanged, still the same old piano, but this time it felt like a part of him, an essential part of his rhythm. And Lily, that girl, was playing the piano with her fingers gently gliding like petals floating in the wind, without hurry, without worry. William sat down in a corner of the subway station, as he always did, saying nothing, only listening quietly. No one knew that a wealthy billionaire, a man respected and admired by all, sat here, in the dark of the subway station, just to listen to the melodies from the piano of a homeless girl. But he didn't feel ashamed or self-conscious. With each passing day, his feeling became clearer: this was where he wanted to stay. This was where he felt he could truly be himself, where no one judged him, where no one saw him as famous or wealthy. All he could be was a man enjoying music and seeking peace in his soul. Lily never saw him, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that every time she played, he felt something shift within him. Her music was like waves caressing his soul, like a message about life he had long forgotten. What she played wasn't just music, but an untold story, a story only those who truly listened could understand. And so the days passed. William still went to the subway station every day, still sat quietly listening to her play. Gradually, he realized that Lily's music had changed him, changed the way he viewed life. He no longer got caught up in debates about money or power. Instead, he just wanted to live truly, to live in alignment with what he felt. Every time she played, he felt a deep connection between the two of them, even though they had never spoken. This connection didn't need words, it only needed the gentle melodies flowing through space and time. He felt like a part of this life, a part of the story she was telling through the piano keys. And William knew that, if there was one thing he had found in all the lost years, it was music, the realization of the spiritual values in life he had long forgotten. Day by day, a special bond began to form between Lily and William. Though they didn't speak much, music became their shared language, a bridge connecting two very different worlds, one of poverty and one of boundless wealth. Every day as William sat and listened to Lily play, it was not just the melodies he felt, but the emotions, the deep thoughts within the girl's heart. Each time Lily played a new piece, it was like a painting. He could see through her emotional scales, joys, pains, hopes, and disappointments she had experienced. The look in William's eyes gradually changed every time he sat quietly in the dark corner of the train station. Lily playing the piano amidst the hustle and bustle of New York City became a rare beacon he had found in his life. It seemed they didn't need to exchange many words, they only needed to look at each other through each piece of music. An invisible, gentle, and delicate connection, something both of them sensed but could not put into words. One day, as Lily played a new piece, William noticed she seemed different. The music that day was more somber, with haunting notes, slow and lingering, as if she were saying goodbye. When the music stopped, William, with a look full of patience, finally spoke, "Lily, if you want to share, I am always here to listen." The girl simply raised her head and then continued playing, but this time, each key seemed to tell a different story. A story of loss, of nights she wandered the streets alone, of her mother who had passed away when Lily was still a child. Every key seemed to pull out a memory from her soul, a voice that could not be spoken, but only expressed through the melodies. She spoke of her father, who had abandoned her when she was young, about the struggles for survival during her years of homelessness. Without saying much, Lily had told everything through music. And William, though he couldn't fully understand the pain she had endured, felt all of it through every note. This made his heart ache, but it was also a kind of awakening, a realization that life is not just about glory or wealth, but about real people who truly need to be listened to and understood. What Lily brought was not only music but a profound change in William's heart. One day, when he returned to his mansion, he sat before the piano he had long neglected. It was the piano he once played many times, but after his family's tragedy, he had given it up. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years had passed, and his fingers had never touched the keys again. But today, in the presence of Lily's music, his hands trembled, not from fear but from desire. He wanted to compose again the old pieces he had long forgotten. His emotions surged like waves. Each key he touched carried a promise to himself, to music, and to Lily, a promise that he would not let his life pass without finding what was truly important. He didn't need to think much. His hands instinctively placed themselves on the keys, for the first time in 30 years. That feeling took him back in time, to when he was a talented pianist, when he was passionate about music, and nothing could stop him. Each note was like a piece of his past, and he began to compose the melodies he had once forgotten, once again letting music take him back to the beautiful memories of his youth. Lily not only revived William's paralyzed heart but also gave him the strength to reclaim his passion for music that he had abandoned. Every piece she played was not just a sharing of the past, but also an encouragement, a motivation for him to live true to his own passion. She was the first to make him feel that music still lived within him, even though it had once been buried under the dust of time. And then, one day, as William sat listening to Lily play, he suddenly realized something he had never thought of before. Lily, that small girl, was not just the piano player in the subway station, she was a true talent. She deserved a stage, she deserved to show her talent to the world. This was something William was certain of. He knew that her life was not just meant to stop at playing piano during fleeting moments in this subway station. She could do so much more, and William, the only one who believed in her, would be the one to help her achieve her dream. That day, as usual, William went to the station to meet Lily. But this time, she was not there. Her absence made him uneasy. He had become accustomed to her melodies, and now, without her, the air around him seemed to lack something. Time passed, and still, she was nowhere to be seen. and his growing concern deepened. Unable to sit still, William decided to send someone to search. For the first time in his life, he felt that he had to act, not to save himself, but to save someone else. The man who had once only cared about work, power, and money now thought of only one thing, the safety of Lily. A few hours later, he received news that made his heart tighten. The girl was lying in the street medical station, badly injured from being forced out of where she usually slept. The cold and numbness from long nights without shelter had caused her to collapse. And when William learned of it, the pain and sorrow surged within him, not only because she was hurt, but because he felt he had missed something important, that he had not helped her sooner. Immediately, William could not stand to see her in such a condition. He went to the medical station and, with great care, he lifted Lily up, taking her out of there as if she were the most beloved person. The eyes of everyone in the medical station followed the scene, and soon, it spread quickly. Passers-by, who had once only seen Lily as a ghost in the subway, now looked at him, a famous billionaire carrying a homeless girl. The news of William's actions quickly spread throughout the city. The media began to focus on the story of the subway girl and the billionaire, and interviews and questions started to arise. But for William, the looks from those around him no longer mattered. He had decided to live true to himself, to live by the values that music and Lily had brought to him. If you're feeling that this story touches your heart, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next inspiring stories. At Gentle Heart Stories, we share tales of kindness, transformation, and valuable life lessons. Be a part of this loving community and help us spread positive messages. After taking Lily out of the medical station, William decided not to let her return to the harsh life at the subway station. Although he knew this action would raise questions and might stir controversy, for him, Lily's safety and health mattered more than anything else. William's close advisors, who always worried about his public image, strongly opposed the idea. They argued that bringing a homeless girl into his mansion would attract criticism, especially since William was a well-known figure in high society. However, William was adamant and refused to listen to their warnings. He believed Lily needed a safe environment to heal, not only physically but also mentally. She didn't need pity, but rather a chance to start over, an opportunity that very few homeless people ever received. He felt he could help her not just with his wealth, but with trust and genuine care. Over the following days, he spent time taking care of her, giving her space to recover and regain the confidence that life had taken from her for so many years. Although Lily felt awkward and shy in an environment so unfamiliar to her, William's thoughtfulness and patience helped her gradually feel more comfortable. She no longer had to endure the cold nights, worry about where to shelter, or her safety. Instead, she could relax, look out the window, and feel the sunlight streaming in, something she had never imagined could exist in her life. But no matter how well she was taken care of, Lily still couldn't fully relax. The feeling of being trapped between two worlds, the glamorous, unfamiliar world of William, and the familiar yet harsh world of the subway station, left her feeling confused. Every time she sat in William's mansion, she felt like she didn't belong there. She feared that if she stayed too long, she would lose herself, lose the freedom she once had, even if it meant living in poverty. One morning, while having breakfast with William, Lily hesitantly shared her thoughts. "I don't want to become someone else," she said, her voice slightly choked. "I'm afraid I'll forget what made me who I am. I can't live in a world that's so foreign to me." William listened to her, looking at her kindly, gently placing his hand on her shoulder. "You don't belong at the bottom of the well, Lily," he said, his voice firm and warm. "You deserve a better life. Don't be afraid of losing yourself, because this change doesn't mean you have to forget what made you the strong person I see here." William's words were like a light shining in the darkness of her soul, helping her realize that she wasn't a victim of her circumstances, but a person of value who deserved a bright future. As Lily began to stabilize, William decided to do something special for her. He didn't just want her to find herself again, he wanted the world to see her talent, to see her as a true artist. However, he didn't rush to make it public but did everything carefully and discreetly. He quietly organized a concert, but not in the way people might expect. This concert wasn't a grand event with bright stage lights, but a private occasion, a meeting with influential figures in the music world, people who could understand and properly appreciate Lily's talent. Lily had no idea about the concert. William didn't want her to feel pressured, he just wanted to give her an opportunity to shine. He invited his friends from the music world, people he knew could recognize the special quality in Lily's music, even though she was just a homeless girl playing the piano at the subway station. William wanted to give her a real opportunity, not just a rescue, but a chance to live her passion, to be recognized as a true artist. When the concert began, Lily was asked to perform, but she still didn't know it was a real performance. She thought it was just a small trial, a chance for her to experiment and feel the atmosphere of a performance. As she stepped onto the stage and lifted the curtain, her eyes widened when she saw a full row of seats. Hundreds of eyes were watching her, and in that moment, her heart seemed to stop. She trembled, gripping the piano keys. The fear and uncertainty about herself started to rise, but then she saw William standing behind her, his eyes full of encouragement and trust. He nodded, signaling to her, and a sense of calm filled Lily's heart. William didn't say a word, but his presence was a reminder that she wasn't alone. Despite her fear, she decided to play the piece she had written in the subway station, a piece tied to her memories of hard times, sleepless nights, and a burning desire to survive. With gentle yet powerful fingers, Lily began to play her music. It was the melody of life, hope, and the great dreams she had buried deep inside her for so many years. Each note, each key seemed to carry her soul, taking everyone into a completely different world, a world without distinctions of rich and poor, without judgment or criticism, only music, emotion, and a connection between people. The entire hall fell silent, everyone seemingly unable to take their eyes off her. Tears began to fall, not out of pity, but because they felt the sincerity and pain in every note. This wasn't just a performance, it was a profound experience, a moment when music truly touched the hearts of everyone in the room. After the emotional performance, no one could have predicted how quickly these moments would spread and shake the nation. One of the attendees, a famous reporter from a major newspaper, had recorded the entire performance. As soon as the concert ended, the video was shared on social media platforms, quickly garnering millions of views within hours. People, from artists, journalists, to ordinary folks, were deeply moved. No one could deny the sincerity and strength in every note Lily played. The video of the concert wasn't just a typical music video, it was an inspiring story of perseverance, of dreams that never fade, and especially about music, the language Lily had chosen to express herself after so many difficult years. Viewers didn't just admire her talent, they felt the power of overcoming obstacles in life, despite all the challenges. Along with this, stories about Lily, the homeless girl who played piano at the subway station, began to be picked up by the media. She became a phenomenon, an inspiration for millions of people facing hardships in life. The press wrote about her as a symbol of longing, hope, and an indomitable spirit. Meanwhile, William, who had given her this opportunity, also became a person of interest. People began to admire him not only for his wealth but also for his humanity and the kindness he showed to Lily. People in the music world began to call Lily, the girl who played the piano to live, and then touched the hearts of the world. That name not only reflected her talent but also served as proof of a shift in how society viewed those who were cast aside, those who were never given the opportunities they deserved. The video of the performance became one of the most widely shared videos on social media, with millions of views, comments, and shares. People were not just amazed by Lily's talent, but by her life story, a story that began in hardship and culminated in the moment she stood on stage and touched the hearts of the world. People spoke of her as a living proof of the saying, "No one can decide your fate but you." And Lily, the girl from the subway station, proved that with her music, event organizers, music directors, and famous artists began to contact her, inviting her to join major programs, even perform in prestigious concerts. But for Lily, those things didn't matter as much as the fact that she could truly contribute to music. That she had found a place where she was heard and loved, something she never thought she would have in her life. With each piece of music, Lily not only told her own story but also touched the hearts of those who had been like her, those fighting in the dark, looking for a light, a chance. She wasn't just a musical phenomenon, she was a symbol of strength, resilience, and a person who had overcome herself. And from that moment, Lily's life was no longer the story of a homeless girl but the story of an artist, a person who brought hope to the world. Lily could never have imagined that her life would change so dramatically in just a few weeks. She had once been a homeless girl, living on cold nights in the subway station, but now, she had become a name sought after by the media. Music producers, record labels, and sponsors constantly contacted her, offering contracts and promising to turn her into a star. She could perform at major concerts, be invited to famous TV shows, and become a music icon. They saw a tremendous potential in her, a talent yet to be fully realized. Every day, the invitations kept pouring in, from sponsors promising to help build her career to companies wanting to craft the perfect image for her. She couldn't help but feel the weight of everyone's expectations, but part of her felt alienated by all these offers. For her, music was never a path to fame or wealth. It was the only thing that had helped her survive the dark days, keeping her from sinking into despair. But now, seeing all the dazzling lights, she felt an indescribable fear. What am I doing? Lily wondered, her hands clenched into fists. Everything was too loud and chaotic, she no longer recognized herself in this world. Yet, part of her also felt regret at the thought of passing up this opportunity, of not letting others hear her music, of not sharing her story. Once a homeless girl, she understood the feeling of being unheard and unseen. And part of her didn't want to return to that. William saw all the worry in Lily's eyes and knew she was standing at a crucial crossroads in her life. He understood exactly what she was feeling, because he had gone through it himself. William was not only a famous investor in the music industry but also a former beloved artist who had lost himself in the spotlight. The years he spent in fame had made him forget why he started making music, to share his deepest emotions with others, driven by passion. Instead, he had become caught in an endless cycle, where everything revolved around fame and material success. Amid the roaring applause and lucrative contracts, he had forgotten the true value of music. And then came the painful consequences, a broken family, a faltering career, and eventually, the death of his daughter Anna, who had once shared his love for music. Anna had lost her way in the world of show business and died too young, in solitude, without anyone knowing. It was the greatest shock of William's life, and he didn't want the same fate to befall Lily. He didn't want her to get trapped in that cycle, where she would be forgotten, where her music would just become a tool for making money. With all his love and concern, William kept warning Lily. "You must understand, those lights can blind you, and if you're not careful, you'll lose yourself. I don't want you to fall into the same trap I did. Music is the only thing you can hold on to. If you let it become a commodity, you'll lose everything," he said, his eyes filled with deep concern. He didn't want Lily to face the tragedy he had experienced. He didn't want her to pay the price for fame, only to lose the true value she once held in her music. When the first big contract arrived, everyone around was eager, thinking this was an opportunity Lily couldn't refuse. Everyone in the room focused their attention on her, hoping she would sign right away to kickstart her career. They talked about shaping her image, building her music style, and the grand performances that would bring her worldwide fame. But Lily felt an indescribable unease in her heart. She sat quietly, listening to the negotiations, but when she saw the papers filled with signatures, she suddenly spoke up, her voice firm and strong. "I don't play music to get rich," she said, placing her hands on the table and looking directly at the people around her. "I only want to play for those who are not heard. For people like me, who need a bit of music to feel that they exist." Lily's words made the room fall silent for a moment. The music directors and sponsors looked at her in surprise. They couldn't understand why she would turn down such a huge opportunity. However, Lily stood firm in her conviction. For her, music wasn't a product to be consumed, it was a means to connect and comfort those who lacked, just as she once had. To her, playing the piano was a way to share her emotions and story with those who had never been listened to, those who could only see themselves through the piano keys and find solace in the melodies. After Lily turned down the contract, William felt a deep sense of empathy for her. He understood that Lily wasn't just a talented young girl, but someone fighting to stay true to herself in a world full of temptations and deceit. He understood her more than ever because he had walked that path himself. One quiet evening, when only the two of them remained in his small room, William decided to open up and share his past with Lily, about his daughter Anna. "Anna also loved music just like you," he began, his voice lowering, filled with sadness. "She was talented, very talented. But when she entered this world, she gradually lost herself. The invitations, the performances, everything made her tired. She no longer saw what music really was, and eventually, Anna died in loneliness." William paused, his eyes clouded with painful memories. "I don't want you to go down that road. I don't want you to lose everything precious, just to become a product of this world. Music is not something to serve fame or money." The conversation between Lily and William wasn't just a student-teacher relationship, but a deep connection between two people with wounds in their hearts. Each day, they shared stories that had never been told, vulnerable moments no one else could understand. Lily was no longer just a homeless girl with a dream of music, she had become a friend, someone William could find empathy and hope in. Anna. Every time she played the piano, every emotion inside her seemed to release, her fingers gliding over the keys as if freeing the pain she had carried for so many years. She no longer felt abandoned, but found a place of comfort, where music wasn't just melodies but her voice, a release from the haunting memories of her past. William also found healing through this relationship. Over the years, he had lived in solitude, with only music and the memory of Anna to hold on to. But when he saw Lily, he remembered why he had fallen in love with music, not for fame or wealth, but to bring a little joy, a little emotion to those who needed it most. William realized that music wasn't just a path to salvation for himself, it was a way he could help Lily overcome the challenges in her life. Through every piece of music, they not only conveyed emotions but also shared a part of life that few others could understand. Two people, one who had lost his daughter, one who had lost everything, were no longer alone. Instead, they became friends, healing each other through the music, through sincerity and empathy that didn't need words. Their story wasn't about fame or glory, but about the connection of hearts, the honesty in every melody, and the people behind them. Lily could never forget the long nights she spent playing piano in the subway station, where music was the only thing that helped her survive. The songs she played weren't just a way to relieve her sadness, but a way to connect with those around her, people like her, who had nothing but hope and dreams. She knew that music could change the lives of poor children living in difficult circumstances just as it had changed hers. So, she decided to start a free music class right in the very subway station where she had always played. The poor children, who didn't have access to expensive music lessons, would learn for free, helping them find a different path in life, not just the struggles, but the discovery and love of music. This class would not only be a place for them to learn the piano, but also a place to feel love and care that few people in this world had for them. Lily wanted to give them a brighter future, a chance to not be trapped in poverty and hardship. William, after witnessing Lily's determination and heart, decided to support everything. He provided the pianos, the space for the class, and all the necessary conditions for the lessons to go smoothly. But more importantly, he stood behind her as a spiritual guide, helping Lily maintain her career without being swept away by the temptations of show business. William understood that this was the way for Lily to truly live fully with music, not for personal gain, but for the people. With his support, the class continued to grow. The children who came to Lily not only learned the piano but found in her a true friend and teacher who helped them believe in their own abilities. Lily didn't just teach them to play the piano. She taught them how to live, how to feel music in life. She taught them that music wasn't just notes, it was a part of the soul, a means for them to overcome any difficulty and find freedom in life. Lily's music class became a symbol of hope and change. And William, who had once been a famous artist, now found joy in standing behind Lily's class, seeing the children change day by day through music, and realizing that music could indeed change the world. 1 year has passed since Lily decided to start offering free piano lessons at the subway station. It became a special space, where poor children, who had no opportunity to learn music at school, could now access a world of music they once only dreamed of. The station, once Lily's home, had transformed into a place of learning, where the hearts of children began to dance with the piano keys. Every morning, the sound of the old pianos echoed, forming a wordless symphony full of emotion. The children, when they entered the classroom, not only learned how to strike the keys but also learned how to listen to life through music. Lily, with her vast heart and love for music, was their guide and their inspiration. Every lesson she shared contained life lessons, about perseverance, about finding joy in the simplest moments. Most importantly, the children began to realize that music was not just for performance, but to be shared, to connect with one another and the world around them. The class became a place where souls, who had yet to find their place in society, found their own voice. For Lily, this was her greatest goal, not fame, but creating a space where these children could feel their worth through music. On William's birthday, Lily decided to play a special piece of music she had composed with great care. It was a song called "The Last Listener," full of emotion, expressing the gratitude and love she felt for William. Every key, Every note held stories, memories, and feelings that Lily could not express in words. As she began to play, the space fell silent, with only the sound of the piano rising, gentle and poignant. This piece was not only a gift to William but also a tribute to everything he had done for her. William sat quietly, listening, his eyes beginning to fill with tears. The emotion choked him, for in every note, he could feel the heart of the girl he had helped. Lily had not only helped him rediscover his passion for music but also helped him find himself again. When the music ended, William broke into tears. His words, simple but heartfelt, made Lily feel that she had truly done something meaningful. "You've brought my heart back. Thank you for not giving up on life." These words from William were like a spiritual embrace, a deep thank you from the bottom of his heart to the girl who had changed his life. Their bond was no longer just a connection between a billionaire and a homeless girl, but a relationship between two people who had overcome life's great challenges together. William could not stop crying as he listened to Lily play The Last Listener. He felt a part of himself being revived with every key Lily struck. For so long, he had stopped playing music, no longer finding joy in it as he once had. After his daughter passed away, he had shut down his passion for music and lived in a world of loneliness and sorrow. But when he met Lily, he found his faith in life and music again. What Lily brought was not just music, but a new energy that helped him find himself, find a reason to continue living. When he looked at Lily, he didn't just see a talented girl, but someone who had fought and never given up on life. William understood that it was her perseverance, her tireless effort, that helped him realize that no matter how harsh life might be, if we hold on to our faith and never give up, anything can change. His heartfelt thanks to Lily were not just gratitude but an acknowledgement that she had given him back a part of life he thought he had lost. After overcoming the storms, Lily decided that her life would never be deceived by the glamour of the stage lights. She understood that if she followed the path of fame, she would no longer be herself. The life she sought was one where music truly touched the hearts of listeners, a place where there was no pretension or personal gain. Thus, she continued to teach free piano lessons at the subway station, where she could directly share her love for music with the poor children. Lily didn't need stage lights or fame. She found joy and happiness in helping others, in seeing the change in the eyes of the children she taught. Every time she taught a new child, she felt an endless joy from sharing music. She realized that music didn't need to be known by millions, as long as it touched one person's heart, that was the greatest success. And for her, the fact that music changed the lives of the children at the subway station was the greatest gift she could receive. Lily received many invitations from prestigious music academies and other famous musical organizations. They wanted her to become a star, to join large performance programs, and there were even prestigious scholarships she could not refuse. However, despite all the enticing offers, Lily did not change her decision. She declined them all and continued teaching at the free piano class at the subway station. The simple reason was that she did not want her music to become a tool for making money or becoming famous. She understood that music is a language that connects souls, and it was not born to serve personal gain but to be shared with everyone. Lily did not want to be someone on stage, simply receiving the admiration of an audience. She wanted her music to be heard by those who truly needed it, the poor children at the subway station, those who had no opportunity to experience music. So, she decided to continue teaching and live a simple life, while her music remained a guiding light for those who found comfort and hope in it. The story of Lily and William became a legend in the music world. It was not only a story of success in music, but a story of people who dared to live differently and pursue what was right, even in the face of great difficulties. People didn't remember Lily just for her musical talent, but for her loving heart and the sacrifices she made for the poor children. And William, with all his wealth and power, became a truly strong man when he decided to listen to the heart of another, rather than simply chasing after material things. Their story reminds us that sometimes, the richest people are not those with the most money, but those who know how to listen, to love, and to share. The story also shows that true strength does not come from wealth or power, but from never losing hope and never giving up on life. Life is a journey full of challenges, but also a series of opportunities to discover ourselves, connect with others, and create change. The story of Lily and William is a vivid testament to the power of music, humanity, and how small acts of kindness can change a life. From a homeless girl playing the piano at a subway station, to a billionaire regaining faith in life, every step they took conveyed a powerful message. Sometimes, the richest person is the one who knows how to listen, and the strongest is the one who never stops hoping. We can all make small but meaningful changes in the lives of those around us, whether through a hug, a song, or simply by listening. Remember, every good action, no matter how small, can resonate with other hearts. The story of Lily and William is not an end, but the beginning of a longer journey. It is a journey not only for them but also for all those who have found a part of themselves in their story. Lily, from a homeless girl with no shelter, has now become an inspiration to thousands of poor children, and William, a man who once felt lost, has now found light in his life through love and music. This story is not one that ends with a sad note but a song of hope and sharing. It is a reminder of the power of music, humanity, and the courage to pursue what truly matters, even when the world around us may be chasing material values. Each of us in this life can be the protagonist of our own story, making small changes that can change a life. And if you find inspiration in this story, don't hesitate to take action, because every good deed will create a positive spiral, spreading and connecting with other hearts. At Gentle Heart Stories, we always believe that stories can change the world. We hope that every story we share will be a small flame that lights up souls, igniting love and hope within our community. If the story of Lily and William has touched your heart, please share these stories with those around you. Follow Gentle Heart Stories to continue receiving inspiring stories, because each story, no matter how small, can be a turning point in someone's life. Let your heart guide you, and together, let's build a community where love and sharing are always the guiding lights. Share this story so that the music of the human heart can resonate forever.